What's up, OUXers? Sophia here, Chief Evangelist for Object-Oriented UX, and I am going to be talking to you today about a gloriously nerdy structure that I've created over the years, but mostly just in the last couple days, inspired by the new year. Happy New Year if you're watching this in real time. But this idea of applying object-oriented UX to life to create structure and clarity around how things like your values and your habits and your goals and your projects and wisdom that you've collected over the years, how all of that connects is fascinating to me. So this is something, when I was leading Ladies at UX in Atlanta, I did a meetup on UXing your life. I've done a workshop on adding, creating your portfolio using object-oriented UX and how you kind of align that to all of your skills and your beliefs. And in 2018, I actually started doing something like this, which is now, of course, in Notion, if you recognize this. I did this in Airtable in about 2018, where I just started really with my values and projects. And I think values, projects, and goals, I think. And I try to connect them all in Airtable, but I did the cardinal sin. And I didn't do any planning first. I just got really excited and just started popping it in to Airtable, kind of creating the structure, adding instances, adding lines in the database as I was structuring the database. And it turned out to be kind of a mess. I didn't really maintain it. I didn't update it. And just last year, when I moved basically everything to Notion, I just kind of imported it all, and then it just sat there for like a year. Meanwhile, in Notion, I have actually been working really hard to OOUX the business. So making sure people and projects and tasks are really nicely connected. So that is already working really, really well. But what I did over just the last couple days is I dug up that old Airtable, or the weird import that came into Notion, and started cleaning that up. And what I'm going to show you, I'm not going to actually go into all my databases. I'm just showing you this kind of hub here. And if you click into each of these, you'll go into these databases with all this good structure. I'm not going to go into this now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be going into the object map. Okay, so you can see the structure and you can create one of these for yourself, because probably it's going to be a little bit custom. Now, if you are new to object-oriented UX and you don't necessarily know how to read an object map, I highly encourage you to go to OOUX.com/newsletter, sign up for the newsletter, and I will send you a 55-page, absolutely free download guide called the OOUX Launch Guide. Did I already say that? The OOUX Launch Guide. It will hold your hand to get you started. And you also get things like the Whimsical template that I'm about to show you, and you'll get an object mapping quick start guide, all sorts of other goodies. It's freaking awesome. So yes, give me your email. I will cherish it, and it will be very, very precious to me. And you'll get put on my newsletter, and I will email you maybe 3 times a month. A little bit more in the beginning there, but in general, you will be, because I'm going to send you all the emails to get you all set up. But in general, you're going to get just that weekly email, weekly-ish email, sometimes every other week email, often Mondays, sometimes Tuesdays. We're kind of casual about the newsletter, but it is pretty regular. And you know what? If you don't like it, then you can unsubscribe, as you do, right? Okay, so otherwise, yeah, you might want to go do that. But if you just want to see what an object map looks like, and specifically with object mapping to create something in Notion or Airtable, you really can create this wherever you want. Wherever you can create structured, connected databases, you're good. So you could even do this in something like Webflow, and if you wanted to publish it or make it even like a private site for, I don't know. Anyways, okay, so let's hop over here. Okay, so here is my OUXing Life Orca board. So Orca, as you probably know, maybe know, it stands for Objects, Relationships, CTAs, and Attributes. And that is the process that we use over here in the world of object-oriented UX. Object-oriented UX being kind of that philosophy of practice, and Orca being the actual bag of tools that we use. So you will get, like I said, in that launch guide, you'll get access to this hub, this Orca Collab hub. It's great for collaboration or just working through something on your own. And you can see actually, so this is organized by Each column is object. Then we got relationships, CTAs, and attributes. And then this goes through the discovery round, the requirements round, prioritization. In this version that I just did the discovery round. I didn't need that level of detail. I didn't need to go through requirements. The prioritization happened in Notion. So I just needed to get that groundwork laid to figure out how all this stuff connects and actually plan it out so it wouldn't be such a mess. So let's go ahead and start here at the beginning. And basically what's happening here is this object map grows. So these are just copies. So you can kind of see that paper trail. I mean, you can see what happened during objects, during the relationships, during the CTAs, and then during attributes, but it's kind of additive. But it kind of can show you the progression. Not kind of, it does. It shows you the progression. And when you get this template, there are video tutorials for each step to kind of take you through how to actually use this hub. Okay, so this started off with noun foraging. So I had my Notion open. I also had some screenshots from some YouTube videos that I've been watching about kind of goal setting and value definition and that kind of thing. So that's where my noun foraging came from. But it was a lot of noun foraging in my head. And basically this is stuff that kind of got left behind. So for example, like I was kind of moving these over into the ones that actually ended up going into my object map, and then kind of showing where there were synonyms, where things were, overlapping. So task did not make it in. So task is basically, that's really where the rubber hits the road, but I didn't put it, I could have, but I was kind of at a higher level, and I was really thinking about these projects, which I ended up calling plan. I recently changed this in Notion from project to plan, because a lot of the instances of this weren't finite projects. They were these ongoing streams of work, and all the tasks inside is basically like a list of tasks is basically a plan. So plan, area, stream, project. Really what this is it's a bucket of tasks, okay? And some of those might be recurring tasks. Some of these it could even be for a trip too. So I use that plan bucket pretty loosely in Notion. I like it to be really nice and flexible for me because it really is a bucket of tasks, okay? So that was something that made it in this thing that I ended up calling plan/area. And then value was a big one because that's really what it all kind of goes down to. It all boils down. It all connects back to the values, right? What are my values and how do I make sure that I'm setting the right goals and then I'm creating the right projects to meet those goals so that it all goes back to my values and I don't go in some weird direction, right? So we've got values, we've got projects, we've got goal, and goals and milestones are funny. Basically, and this is such a funny thing in OOUX, the cardinal question that we're always asking, are these two things one object or are they two different objects? And when it comes to goals and milestones, really a milestone is just a goal that's been met, right? So it really is kind of a status thing. So there's going to be a little status drop down to say, what is the status of the goal? Is it a milestone? Am I currently working on it? Is it like long-term dreams status? So those kind of are the same thing. And then I added this later on. I added in unique gifts. So these are the things, this is something that might not be in your map. I think it should be for anybody. For me especially, I needed to start thinking about this because I am working on delegating. We are growing our team here at Rewired. I'm trying to get better at delegating. So I need to get really clear on what is unique for me to do and what do I need to be delegating. I think this is important for everybody, not just if you're a business owner, not just even if you're a leader or a manager that has a team where you are delegating and you do need to kind of think about, do I delegate this or do I do this? Is this in my wheelhouse or not? This is also for as you're job hunting, right? Thinking about what are my unique gifts and would this job actually align to those unique gifts. So in this database, the number of instances here for unique gifts, I have like 6. It's not that there, it's a pretty core set of things that, also like some interests, like things that I just have been interested in since I was a kid. Like these are really, really core things. And, as I was going through this process, I was really bopping around a lot. I do have a time lapse that I took of this. Let me know in the comments if you want to see the time lapse. I tried to do a voiceover with the time lapse and it was just super messy. So I'm re-recording it. But if you do want to see that, let me know. And you can kind of see how much bopping back and forth there was with this. Now, when I teach Orca in my certification program, we go through these steps really linearly, but I'm always caveating this is a really flexible process. And the better you get at it, the more practice you get at this process, the more you do end up bouncing around because you kind of like think of an idea over here and you think of an idea over here. In general, I was progressing through this, but for example, the unique gifts, that is something that I ended up adding later on. And then there's another one that I added later on. It didn't even make it to a card down here. And that is, oh, it wasn't even over here. Whoop, 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 whoop. Inputs. Inputs got added later. It wasn't even over here. I was like, where did it go? Okay. And then also habits/rituals. I ended up renaming this in Notion to practice. So renaming happens too. Naming things is hard and getting to the right name is really, really important. For example, changing project to plan. It was like, I don't know, maybe just for me, but making me really uncomfortable. The fact that I had ongoing things like OOUX happy hour or adulting as a project. Like I don't really think about that as a project, but plan feels a lot better. It's this getting to that level of specificity is the magic, right? Like not being too specific and, but not being too general either, like area or bucket. I tried out bucket for size and like, cause it really is just like a group of tasks, but I didn't really like that either. It just sounded like something that you like throw your slosh into, like something a pig eats out of. So I didn't like the vibe of bucket, but plan felt really good. And then habit doesn't have a whole lot of magic in it. Ritual felt a little bit too like some of the things that I had on there were like, no, this is not a ritual. So practice felt really nice. So, and it took me a few years to like, cause I've been logging habits and tracking habits for a long time. Surprise, surprise. So yeah, tracking my practices. And one of my mantras is everything is practice, right? Everything that we're doing, we're either practicing eating cookies or we're practicing not eating cookies, right? Whatever we're doing, we're always practicing it. Okay, so let's move forward here. So these are the 6 objects that I ended up with and that I ended up connecting in Notion. And before I went any further, I went ahead and wrote definitions. So this is something that often we kind of stick in the requirements round when we get into the object guide. But when you have really fuzzy objects, it's not super clear, which in a lot of software is often the case, or a lot of enterprise software. Writing definitions early on is actually really, really helpful. So this is sometimes that one of those things that we, it's a flexible process, always remixing. We will often take definitions and move it from the requirements round straight into the discovery round. So I went ahead and did write definitions of these. I actually Googled the definition of value, took the definition of value, tweaked it to make it my own. If you want to pause this and read my definitions, you can. There they are. And then I went in and under the title name card, that's our first piece of core content. So under title name in parentheses, what I always do is I write some example titles or names, which is basically a good way to do a quick instance audit. So what are some instances of these things? So for values, okay, connection, play, creativity, health. Those are some of my core values. Reminders, one of those, this what I now call words of wisdom. Change the name on that one too, back in Notion. We'll just call them reminders now because that's what they're called. Okay. The reason I'm saying what I changed to in Notion is just to show that the words evolve, right? You want to get to a really good word, but sometimes you have to try some words out. Okay. So reminders, travel with intentions, not expectations. Boring volunteering feels really good. So some of those things that just I've collected over the years and I just need to be reminded of on just about a daily basis. Goals. So the Orca handbook, having that actually out for sale. Oh gosh, y'all, it's so close as of this recording. It's so close. Relaunching the card game, typing 65 words per minute. I'm so slow still. And then those plans/areas. So that's something like there's some of these are one-to-one relationships. So you can see here the Orca handbook and the Orca handbook for sale. Okay, so one thing that I do often is like a red flag for me is when I see an instance under two different objects, like the same instance in two different places. I'm like, is that the same thing? Now, that's okay here because I know that often a goal and a plan will have a one-to-one relationship, but not always. Sometimes a goal will have multiple plans. Sometimes a plan is going to have multiple goals. Okay. So a plan, it could also be content creation, and one of the goals in that could be the Udemy course, right? Okay. And then habit. I didn't do my instances. Let's do some. So practicing Polish every day, journaling, meditation, which I've been terrible about doing. And then unique gifts, things like creating structures and systems. That's what I do. OOUX, basically. Doing shit like this, teaching, things like that. Okay, so those are some of the instances. I also want to mention here, so this aligned belief, I think it was an object, and then I turned it into core content on my values. So that's where that came from. So that will often happen too, where some of your objects, you might just be shoving them in as metadata or core content right here in the beginning. All right, let's move on to the relationships. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the system model here. Like, this is incomplete AF. All right. So I want to tell you again, like, if you want to see that time lapse, you'll kind of see this happen a little bit more. But basically what was happening is I skipped right over the system model because I usually do. I don't often need it because I'm so strong with a nested object matrix. So, but then as I was thinking through some proxy relationships, like, for example, does a value directly connect to a plan, or is it always through a goal? I actually popped back over to the system model to really visualize that. So I kind of just deleted some arrows just to see what was connected and what wasn't connected and where my proxy relationships were. And I didn't even add all of the objects. So most of the work happened in the nested object matrix. And how that looked is I just copied over this this little baby object map to grow it, copied it over, started working through it. And then I had these cards here along the side. So that's actually you'll see that over here sorry for all the moving around. Hopefully I'm not making you seasick. These cards here are just placeholders. So I created those placeholders for all of my objects and then just kind of option or alt dragged over. So I made sure that I was thinking about every single object for every single object, okay, right, as we do the nested object matrix. So basically I'm thinking, okay, for this object, how do all these other objects fit in? And creating those 0 to many or has many relationships. And then describing those relationships a little bit more. So this was just a really interesting exercise. I ended up creating so many connections. I ended up seeing how much everything needed to connect to values and goals. And yeah, it was really, really interesting. I ended up baking in a few more of those roll-up relationships or proxy relationships into Notion. But yeah, this was really, really cool. Let's see if there's anything specific I want to talk about here. I will also share this link. So look for this link. This will be open to you. That will be in the notes below. So if you need to just like look at this, if you wanted to create something like this, then you can look at it and not have to like pause the screen. I don't know. Maybe you'll want to create something like this and just use this as kind of a starter kit. Okay, so CTA matrix. Well, this doesn't look like this CTA matrix over here. The reason for that is because this is one role. Like I am the single role. So I just made this really simple on myself. So if you have an app that you're working on, there's really one role that you're designing for, then you don't necessarily need the matrix. You can just pop those green sticky notes right into your object map, and that's what I did here. And there wasn't a lot. Like I kind of assumed that there's add, new, edit, and delete goes across all of those. Of course, I'm going to be adding and editing and deleting. That's kind of in a weird place, isn't it? It should probably be down here. Ooh, Pixel pushing moment. Okay. Yeah, so that kind of goes all the way across. And then the main things that I'd be updating more regularly is setting things as a priority, right? So setting something as a priority for plans and areas, setting which burner it's on. I did not go into the requirements. I did not go into the why and the when. I did not need that level of fidelity for this. This is really just for me, right? I am the user. Okay, and then going over into the object map, here's where I started breaking down the structure, okay? So this is really, really fun. I basically went through what core content and what metadata I needed. So metadata is going to be the stuff that I'm going to really want to sort and filter by. I'm going to want to be able to see, for example, my reminders by tags. I was also kind of curious here now that because I didn't have values connected before. That was a new connection. I had reminders in Notion, but I hadn't built out my value hub and I hadn't connected them. But I did have tags and categories, and there was actually a whole lot of overlap here. So there was some thinking there on, do I replace tags and categories with values? Is it okay that it's redundant? It's just redundant right now. So some thinking there, but basically I would want to be able to say, okay, for these reminders, like just show me my reminders for marriage, right? Hashtag marriage or hashtag management or hashtag self-love, something like that, right? So there was way more tags than there are values. So I kept them both. So kind of working through that, all the stuff that I would want to sort and filter by. You can see with unique gifts, I don't have any metadata, right? And that's okay because like I said before, there's only like 6 instances. So I don't really need to categorize my unique gifts, okay? They're all just me. If it continues to grow and before I know it, I have 16, 17, 18 or something like that, then I might need to add some metadata to start kind of categorizing that. Some of them I do pull dates, like last edited is really important for my reminders because I'm constantly going in there and like tweaking them and adding notes to them. And I really want the ones to surface that haven't been edited, like the ones that I haven't seen and like dug into. So I definitely wanted to pull that for some, but not all these. Like that's not going to be important for values. In watching some YouTube videos, I learned that I should have 3 to 5 absolute max values. I had 11. So I added a piece of metadata for, is this value a core value or not? I kept all 11, but I tagged and I did some prioritization. But it's really just a binary. Is this a core value or is this not a core value? You could have like primary, secondary, tertiary or something. So I not only had content for aligned beliefs, I also wrote my ideal picture. So I went and watched some YouTube videos on, like I said before, on defining your values. And I just took some notes on like, what should that structured journaling look like? And I did not fill it all out. I just did some journaling on the core pieces. Building this all out in Notion, let me give you some time frame. Doing this object mapping, building out the structure took me about 50 minutes or so, a little less than an hour. Building out the structure. Now, I already had some of that structure in there. Building out the structure probably took like 20 or 30 minutes in Notion. If you're starting from scratch, maybe another hour. If you're good in Notion, right? If you already know Notion. But filling it all in is a lifetime, all right? And it's going to be messy. And this is something that, what I would encourage you, so a little time out here, what I would encourage you to do is if you do go down this rabbit hole of starting to structure all this stuff, which is a very kind of like, I'm a recovered type A person, right? So I have to kind of embrace the wabi-sabi with this and then it's incomplete, right? I haven't filled out all these pieces from all my values. I haven't connected everything the way that I want. This is going to be an ongoing thing. So when I review my reminders in the morning, maybe I'll pick 1 or 2 and I'll say like, oh, I haven't connected the values. So let me like just plop in the values that I think that this reminder connects to. Let me write a little bit more for my habits. I have a new thing for plans and ideas. So I have the habit or the practice, and now I'm going to have some notes on how do I make this practice happen? What's my plan for this practice? And that's not all filled out, right? So it's as far as the structure is glorious and works really, really well. The content right now is a little bit of a mess, and I'm okay with that, okay? So I spent maybe a day and a half. This is like the thing that I like to nerd out on. So this was my December 30th and 31st was playing with this. So I spent, about a day and a half journaling on this and really digging in and reviewing my reminders and deleting some that were old, and it just felt really nice, but it didn't get done. So this is not something that you should think of you need to get done. Okay. And this definitely should not be something that should be stressing you out. This should just feel kind of fun and exciting to say, like, this is basically, I mean, this is us, right? Like, this is really just getting a whole lot of clarity on what you are, your values, the wisdom that you've picked up throughout life, what your goals are, and then what those milestones are. What do you have to brag about, right? Like, what have you done? So I fill all those in too. I've written before about my brag list. If you're on my newsletter, you've heard about the brag list. I do that on a yearly basis to kind of balance out the resolutions, right? And the goals. Okay, what did I do? And I do that regularly. I do that on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis too. I think about, okay, what actually did happen? Because I didn't do everything that I wanted to do, and I don't need to harbor on that, which I have very much a tendency to do. Okay, back to OUX. Couple other things I want to call out here. So I do have some nested objects, these gray guys right here, nested objects that are not in this particular object map, like tasks and people. Okay, so the plan/area is really the thing that kind of then links to these other objects that are sort of out of this OUXing life and more about the business and just getting stuff done. But I really want that to be connected, right? This is where I spend most of my time, is in the business. So I want to make sure that the tasks are connected to plans. Those plans are connected to goals, right? Connected to goals. Those goals are then connected to values. And then the goal, I can look at a goal and I can even pull in those words of wisdom that I might need to be looking at when I'm trying to reach a goal. Okay. Now, the one that I added in pretty late in the game was input. Now, I already had a Notion database for this, my curated input Notion database, where I put, like, somebody recommends a book to me, I pop it in that database, a movie that I want to watch, a podcast that I've been wanting to listen to. It's basically a list of content that is going to go into my head at some point. And I call it curated input to create a self-fulfilling prophecy of actually curating it and not just letting anything come into my brain space and my soul space, because there is so much shit out there and it can get really cluttered, right? Do you feel me? It can get really cluttered. So I have a whole database for my curated input. And I was like, wait a second, I should connect that too. So that was not connected. That was an afterthought. And so as an afterthought, I first connected it here in the nested object matrix just so I could really focus. And I added, nope, that's not the nested object matrix. I didn't add curated input over here, did I? I must have copied the last one over. So then I went, you can see like inputs is at the bottom of some of these. So I went through every single one to make sure I could see where I wanted inputs to be connected and how inputs would be connected, what would be connected to inputs, what would be nested inside of inputs, and how would inputs nest inside everything else. So that one got kind of layered in later, and then I rounded out the structure of these, and then basically went into Notion and compared and said, okay, like, what do I have now? What connections do I need to make? And then I just played. All right. So if you want me to make a Notion database template for you with this structure, if you think this is pretty cool and you're like, I don't want to build that, that looks like a lot of work. Really, if you know Notion, I don't know, look at this structure, an hour or so, and then you can customize it. But if you want to just copy a database, let me know. Let me know if you want that, and let me know what it would be worth to you, because it'd probably be a little bit of work for me to do that, to create it and like strip out all my stuff and put example content in there and all that good stuff. So let me know if you're interested. Let me know if this is helpful and inspiring or just crazy pants. And regardless, Happy New Year and happy OUXing.